Michael Moe runs GSV Asset Management, a firm focused on venture investing, also doing some research around these deals coming out, trading on shares posts, secondary offerings as well, really active in this space. And you've run in big investment banks before. I want to ask you first about what's happening here, because there does seem to be a lot of offerings coming down the chute and a real excitement about them. And maybe the number of offerings isn't setting records right now, but the excitement is very reminiscent of a dot-com bubble.
Well, one, I think you have growth investors that have basically been starved for the past decade. And so when you start to see some exciting new companies come public, it's like all of a sudden, it's like Christmas. And so that's part of what you're seeing. There's a huge pent-up demand for interest in these issues.
Well, in a low interest rate environment, investors chasing any kind of return, outsized growth is not something you see a lot of places right now in a lot of fields.
Certainly not in the public world. I mean, one of the reasons these private exchanges have exploded is because the private marketplace, you're seeing tremendous growth, but for most investors, those aren't accessible.
Right.
Michael, you're also on the board of Shares Post. We've seen Groupon valued at $5 to $6 billion on the secondary markets, but how do public investors pin a value on a company that has 7,000 employees but no profits?
Well, it's a tricky business for sure. We have actually a research affiliate that's tried to put a value on Groupon. That value actually was put at about $13 billion. But again, it's a very imprecise science. You're trying to make predictions about future margins. Obviously, the first quarter, the company lost $140 million or so they're on track to losing over $500 million. So you're making a lot of assumptions about what future growth is and what the scale is when you get that growth. So, it's definitely not for the faint of heart.
How about the CEO, Andrew Mason? He's obviously a funny guy, but he's very young. Are investors going to ask the question whether he's the right guy to lead Groupon through an IPO and then continue to lead it from there?
Well, certainly, you always have to question the leadership and what their experience to execute against an opportunity. On one hand, you got to give him enormous credit. I mean, this business company didn't exist 2.5 years ago, and they're on track to do $2.5–3 billion of revenue. They also have a star-studded group of investors that really, bet on management teams, are very quick to turn them out if they don't think they're capable. On the other hand, this is a tricky business. Now with 8,000 people growing over 1,000%, you better have the right management team. Otherwise, this could be a spectacular blow-up, for sure.
So what's Mason going to go through now? Now, the bankers are in there. He's got Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley in the corner, working him over, ready for the prize fight. He's going to go on the road, meet with investors. The death stare to Kara Swisher might work at the All Things D conference. That's not going to work in a road show. What are investors going to ask him? Well,
they're going to, one, just to see how serious he is and how consistent he is with the answers he gives. I mean, people, the information spreads quickly from Boston to San Diego to London to Hong Kong. So that's one issue. But I think importantly, they're going to see what's the team really around him. I mean, clearly, a guy his age, just not going to have that much experience. Right. A guy that just went on his board, Howard Schultz, might provide some interesting perspective because Howard, when they went public, was a relatively young guy who really didn't have the experience to run that business to the kind of growth that they ultimately achieved. Now a legend. But what he did have was tremendous team around him. He had seasoned, wise people that gave people confidence that this young guy with this huge vision was going to have people around him that were going to be able to actually execute.
This is going to be a great one to watch. Michael Moe, really glad to have you join us as always. All right.